Here we are back on the Liverpool Overhead Railway, as far as we've got so far on the recreation of this incredible, remarkable early electric elevated railway that ran all along by Liverpool's docks, which are all going to be over here on the left, and the city of Liverpool, and indeed a few docks over on the right. And some of the things that we've done since the last update, you can see here we're on one of the services. So this is the test session that we use to check things over. Is that we've now added correct Liverpool Overhead Railway signals. These were innovative colour light signals which were installed on the railway from its very inception in 1893, and we're now coming into, which station is this? Let me see. There we are. We're coming into Toxteth Dock Station, and you'll see here one of the little starters. This was a variant which has the signal lamps on the right hand side of the post rather than on the left, and just while it's loading up there, if we go over to free roaming view, it's a bit close, come up a bit, and you'll see that along the track we have a number of the signals. Thanks to Mike Edge, we now have the signalling plan for the line. There's our train coming along, and you'll see that this signal here has two switch boxes attached, or rather one of them's attached. You can actually see there's a wire feed coming down from the signal itself down into this switch box here, and there was a second switch box for some of them. Some of them had two, some had one, some had none. So we basically made those three variants, and they have the signals on the left hand side of the post, and at the moment we have them all inside the refuge railing position, but they normally were also outside the railings, and that wire wiggles its way through the railings in order to connect up to the boxes on the inside. We're using the Type 2 standard station Type 2, and this is one after Toxteth. I can't remember which one that is, but also we've made sure that the starter signals have, I just nudge that over, have the clearance, the visibility for the driver and the train crew. So we're still using the generic passenger set. At some stage we will produce, or some kind soul will produce, a 1920s 1930s working men and women who are the predominant users of the railway. You can see there that's one of the signals with a single switch box, and the train is just coming along now. Just looking to see what else we've new that I can show you. If I run forward, so these stations are all pretty standard. Here's Wapping Dock, though I do want to make some more variants of the stations as well. They did change quite a bit over time, and so the look of them does vary quite a bit, but essentially we're seeing the railway as it was back in the 20s and 30s. So what station are we up to now? Here we are at Custom House. There's a very remarkable Custom House building to be made for that, and after Custom House, quite close together, we got James Street, and I want to show you this that we've been working on. This is one of the standard type bridges that we used on the Liverpool Overhead. Now this has been done as a just simply as a scenery item, so you put it into place and you just run the track over it, and it's basically not supporting the track, it's just there as the bridge. And you'll see on the side there's an advert for Walker's Cellar Scotch Whisky, and we found 4 adverts that we could use, three for Walker's and one for the Liverpool Overhead itself from old photographs. This is Pier Head station, so this is something we've not shown in these videos yet. So this was really the sort of central station of the line, and had these, see there, a couple of kiosks, which are just basically made as pretty simple looking things, but they actually sell fruit and veg, or fruit anyway, to the passing trade, and various other things, of course, tobacco and all the rest of it. But Pier Head station was quite remarkable, completely enclosed, and with this sort of partial open roof there with the girders running across. I've limited the amount of detail I put in. There's quite a bit more girdering detail I could put in underneath that roof, but it would have just made the model enormous. And these station models are quite big, really hit the graphics engines, so that's why I try to keep that in hand. There's our little train look in the distance, and there's our first building. That's been available from the download station. And at Pier Head we've got the docks line as Liverpool Overhead Railway, Southport Seaforth Dingle, Southport the connection with the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, Seaforth Sands, and Dingle itself there at the south end of the station, south end of the line. And then further along, another one of the standard bridges, with this time advertising Walker's Imperial Stout in bottle. So there you go, don't miss out on that. The signalling is now pretty much accurate. As I say, Mike Edge kindly let us have the signalling diagram for the railway, and that's given us a chance to sort the signals out a bit, to move the starters a little bit further, about 5 or 10 foot down from the platform, which aids with visibility, of course. But you can see now the completely automatic signalling that operated the line, or virtually completely automatic. And zooming along here, along the line, here we are at Clarence Dock, and what have we got there? Got my eye. There's one of the other signals. As you've seen, some of the signals have got the switch boxes, and some, like these two here, this one and the previous one for the other direction, haven't. Where are we now? Nelson Dock. So this is the switchback, the duck under, whatever you want to call it, and the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway's got a sort of viaduct carrying coal lines across the top there, which we'll bring in due course. There's a lot to do on this project. Let's have a look, see if there's anything else I can show you. Where are we now? Huskisson Dock, more signals. Definitely need to make different varieties of the stations. There's Canada Dock, and these are actually the docks that Bob has marked out, and we are going to model them, and so there's plenty to see when you travel along the Liverpool Overhead. Which one's this? Brocklebank. There's a lot of docks, which is great. And zooming forward yet again is Alexandra Dock, and now we come round the sort of reverse curves right at the north end of the line, where we might get as far as Gladstone Dock, and then round the curve. And as you can see, this is now just the holder position, because Seaforth Sands Station, which is going to be here, is going to need a complete new model to make it to fit the spot, because there's nothing really available on the download station that would even come close to it. And we also have on that curve, in about this position here, we've got the old Seaforth station used as a shed for storing trains after the new Seaforth Sands, which was the connection that went on. And this is representing the rest of the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, representing the Lancs and Yorks Railway. There's the crossing junction. Right, so let's go back to the cab interior, and here we are coming into, I wonder where we're coming into now, how far we've got. Coming into Chase View. Well, it looks nice and blue. I think that's probably a bit too blue. I'm not sure which station that is. I haven't got the signs on that one. But again, it gives you an idea. This was a 10-minute service, very intensive. These signals largely automatic. There were ground signals at crossing places where you had crossover, and that's something which we're going to have a look at, see if we want to make them. The trains did fill up. They didn't pick up all the passengers necessarily, but they certainly were very well used, very popular. As I say, couldn't necessarily pick up everybody because they reached capacity. So here we are in the cab, and originally I thought that the cab controls, which I've just modelled fairly basically there, that it was actually a vertical mounted control rather than these horizontal mounted controls. Having seen something like that very momentarily, I think it's in a YouTube video of the Liverpool Overhead, but since then I've found that these are, I've seen a photograph taken as it were from the right hand side here looking across to the motorman's position, and these look to be pretty close to what they were, simplified obviously just to try and give the effect. So around to our left are going to be quite a view of docks, shipping. There's going to be a lot of ships to make, which is great. I think this is a brilliant project with plenty to do. And it does take a lot of sorting out. We had, when we got the signals, we made the signals up, and these are using the kind MO signal. So it's for build 2.8. I found when I tried to make signals with a later build version that they went to pot. I'm not very good. Well, I'm hopeless. I have no idea about scripting and such things. So I stuck to these earlier ones, which load perfectly okay. This is in TANE, by the way. Bob runs it in Trains 2012. I briefly had a try of it in 2019, and it's just the same. So it looks to be pretty stable, pretty good. I'm not quite sure why it's not picking everybody up. There are a couple of issues with people in the train, which I've still not sorted out. Don't know if I can see anything here. It always seems to be about here. No, I don't see anything. Oh, excuse me. So where they're sticking their elbows out, I tend to think it's the rather sort of expansive view that you get from the there, look, there's one with his elbow out through the side of the carriage. These seem to stretch themselves out a bit, these this default passenger set. So when we do go into having our own passenger set for these, then we want everybody to keep their elbows well in, and there'll be many, I think just inevitably, because there were so many dockers using the line, that the passenger set will have a lot of dockers in it. I've just noticed there we've had some fun with loading and unloading passengers. The stations I've had to change. Bob and I discovered there was a problem with them in that the train was pulling up, and instead of loading passengers from the correct platform to its left, it was actually loading passengers from the right, and that was probably because I'd got very big trigger radii, 6.6 meters. So I've reduced those down. I've also reduced, but then I found that the doors on the leading carriage didn't necessarily open. Now we did fix that. It was only on the sessions it was working. If you drove the train just as you normally would in trains without any, not running a session, just ran it like a model railway or something, then there was no problem. So I can't quite work that one out, why that situation was occurred like that. And so I'm just leaving this here a moment, letting it approach. What station is this? Huskisson Dock. I just want to see if those doors at the front there open up, because I thought they weren't initially. Yes, they are now, and yet they didn't at the previous station. That's very odd. I might need to tweak those stations a bit just to make sure. But at least they're loading people up from this platform. It was loading up people from over here, so it was sort of like leapping across the track to magically get in on the wrong side of the train. So these are all the fun and games that you have when you're trying to create something completely new. I don't think there's anything quite like this on trains. I don't know if there's any New York Overhead, you know, the L or Chicago Overhead or something like that. Possibly there is. But for me, this was a completely new departure in many aspects of producing the Liverpool Overhead. The sheer scale of the docks are just extraordinary. They really are immense. I mean, it's just stretching away into the distance here. I mean, there's the switchback. You can just see disappearing into the with the graphics taking it out at that distance. I've got shadows left switched on, which means you get the shadow of the station under the substructure, under the viaduct, and indeed of the train itself. I think, yes, running along the platform there. But what is really annoying about shadows? Those front doors didn't open again. Look, that is strange. That is strange. Now what is happening here? I just don't understand that. I may have to tweak those radii again, just increase it very slightly. The problem is, I found with large radii they impinge on the other track. As I was saying, one of the things that I don't like is the way you can get a shadow from scenery items and from the train itself, but from splines they don't generate a shadow, which is really rather bizarre. So the choice is either to have some shadows, like there's where these refuges are, that's a piece of fixed track, but the spline itself isn't showing any shadow. So you've got these sort of like, you know, a whole series of fixed track sections, because that's where the refuge is, and then the viaduct spline with no shadow. So anyway, there we are. That's the latest news on what we're doing with the Liverpool Overhead. If you download it, you can download some of these models from my website, and I'll release more as we get along with them. It's still very much a work in progress, and so there will be new versions come out that will correct problems, and there will be changes inevitably as we progress with this incredible project. And the stations themselves are going to change, because although this generic type is suitable for quite a few of them, I just want to check those doors again. There are other variants which I intend to do. Yep, there they are. They opened again. How very strange. I can't. And these are absolutely identical stations, so I don't know what's happening there. I might just add an extra quarter of a metre or something to the radius. Find out. Okay, so there we are. As before, anybody who's interested in making models of warehouses, Liverpool's very many public buildings, ships, boats, anything you like, there's going to be plenty of opportunity to display them in the Liverpool docks area. And all of this here indicates docks. That's the water of the docks. This is area that will be covered by warehouses, cranes, shipping. So it will be exactly as it said on the posters, and some of those posters I displayed on my Liverpool Overhead Railway page on my website down the bottom. Magnificent view of the docks and liners, shipping. It must have been absolutely incredible to take a short journey on this, because we're only talking about half an hour or so. I mean, we're 21 minutes into it now. We're not that far off Seaforth. Let's have a look and see what happens with these doors here. So here we are coming into Alexandra Dock. Let's go around that way and have a look. Let's come back a bit. Will they, won't they? Will they, won't they? Will they? And they did. Oh, I don't know. I can't fathom that one at all. So if anybody has any ideas why the stations are not, these are identical stations all along this route. I've always used the same generic station to represent all of the dock stations, and that's until I start making others which were not exactly the same as these, to replace individual ones. But that's down the line, quite literally, a fair bit yet. There's other things to make first. But if anybody's got any ideas why that is happening on the stations, now the stations, as I say, are like the signals, have a fairly early build number. I think I've got 2.9 on them. I have got not a clue about scripts. The script is from somebody who helped me out making stations in the first place back in the day. So that's quite a bizarre sort of circumstance. I'll quite happily send you a copy of the config, or you can download the model and have a look yourself. And if you've got any bright ideas, they would be very welcome indeed, to help me resolve some of these odd little quirks that seem to develop. But I rather like the whole thing because it is something that we've conjured up out of nowhere. There's very few books on the subject. I think we've got all of them. I've got my third one is on its way, second-hand, all the way from Seattle. So that's got a long way to come yet. And yeah, there they are. Look, they're opening now. I don't know what it is. We've tracked down video from YouTube and other sources to give us an idea. Liverpool Museum has been helpful with some photographs that they've managed to send us just before the lockdown. Mike has been very helpful indeed with plans and with, as I say, with the signalling plan and advice. It looks like as far as it's going to go, is it? Not going to go anywhere else. Navigate to C4 Sands down. Oh well, there we are. Sessions, rather like scripts, are the black arts as far as I'm concerned, so I've no idea what I'm meant to do now. So anyway, that gives you an idea of where we are with the Liverpool Overhead Railway project as of the 26th of June 2020. If you're interested in helping out with any of the aspects of it, with the particularly with the buildings, with all of the sort of many things that we need to do to create everything beyond this line. This is just the starting point, this line. The elevated line itself, the Docker's umbrella. There is just so much so much to make. Look at those docks, absolutely incredible, really incredible. So if you want to get involved in some way, then please let us know. And all offers, well, we'll consider everything really, but it needs to be stuff that's going to fit into the scheme of things here. So there we are, Liverpool Overhead Railway. If you've any questions, comments, queries, suggestions, whatever, criticisms, please post them in the comments of this video, and I'll aim to respond to any sensible ones, or to the sensible ones. I picked that up from another YouTuber. He only replies to sensible queries and suggestions and all the rest of it. But that gives you an idea of where we are. Here we are at Pier Head. Yo, lovely jubbly. So I hope you liked the video. Bit of a, well, I wouldn't say a cook's tour, but a bit of a dive about for the Liverpool Overhead Road. Actually, just beginning to get the beginning of a sniff of a feel of what it's going to be like, aren't you? With that view, not bad at all. Coming on, yes, we're definitely getting there. Thank goodness somebody had modelled this. And if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Please do subscribe. Always very welcome, always helpful, always encouraging.